I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. Alright, today we're going to paint a fall floral. So let's start out by grabbing a humongous brush and drying it off and grab some light gray. And we're going to start by throwing a layer all over the canvas. So just grab a bunch of paint and go for it. And it doesn't matter like which way the brush strokes go, so just grab a bunch. And don't worry if it's a little thin in a few places, because we can come back and thicken it up around our flowers. Now that we have a good thin layer all over the front, we can let that dry for just a sec and we'll come back and start throwing our flowers. So just wipe that one off and chunk that one in the water. All right, now that we have a good thin layer on the background, let's go ahead and throw a jar on there. So I'm gonna use like a number 6 size brush and dry it off. And grab kind of like a chartreuse green is a good green to start with, but you can make your jar whatever color. I'm going to do mine green. So number 6 and dry it off and grab some chartreuse or a limey kind of green. And we're going to jump up just like 1.5 inches or so from the bottom of our canvas and throw a little droopy line. And then once you get that droopy little line, then we're going to throw a little line that goes straight up for at least 4 or 5 inches from both sides. And then once you have a little line coming straight up, then we're going to throw a little whoop. So like on the left-hand side, we kind of want to curve it in like the left-hand side of a rainbow. And on the right-hand side, we kind of want to curve it in like the right-hand side of a rainbow. You just want it to kind of whoop, whoop, curve in from both sides. And then once you have both of those, then we're just going to do a wiggly little line that goes up for just like 1 inch. So it's just kind of giving the impression of the threads of the jar. It's just a wiggly little line. And then once you have those, we're going to throw a little droopy line. So you just want a droopy little line that connects the top left to the top right. And then we'll grab a bunch of that green and just throw a good layer all inside your jar. And don't worry if your background's still a little bit wet, because we're going to come back and throw more paint on the jar anyway. got a good first little layer on our jar. So now we're gonna, you don't have to wipe out your brush or anything. We're just gonna grab a green that's just a tad bit darker. It's more like a spring green, grass green kind of color. And we're gonna skip right up above the lip of the jar, and we're gonna throw like a big circle. So you want it kind of touching the top of your jar, and it's just gonna be a big circle. And then once you get your big circle on there, we're gonna kind of have it a wavy little edges, because we want it to kind of look like a cabbage. We're giving the impression that there's a little cabbage, a little ornamental cabbage. So I would flare it out over here on this edge too, so it can hang off over. And then we'll go ahead and fill that all in with a layer just to get some paint on there, because we'll come back to it. But I think that got us a good little start to our little cabbage. All right, and then I would use that same brush, or you could swap out to a smaller one. And we're gonna use some more of those greens. So you could grab the lighter greens with some medium green. And we're gonna throw a few long pieces of greenery that come up over this edge. So whenever you're throwing these, load your brush with a lot of paint and then just be real light with it. And that's how you'll get the good line. But I would throw a few long ones. And we'll kind of make them look like they're separate pieces later, so don't worry if they kind of look like they're all going together. All right, there's a few pieces. You could add less or more, depending on how much room y'all have. But I think that's a good little start to our little greenery. And then once you have that, I would go ahead and let's wipe off our extra. So you don't have to rinse it out, just kind of wipe it off. And now let's grab some slimy, limey green. So a really light green with some white. So make sure you grab a little bit of white with it just to make it even lighter. So white and some really light green. And we're just gonna skip up right from our cabbage over here at the top left, and we're gonna throw a little line. So just a little line right from our cabbage. And then once you have that, we're gonna throw a few little lines coming off of it. So I'm gonna skip down a little bit from the top and throw a few. Then I'm gonna skip down again and throw a few more. And then I'll skip down and even throw another couple. And then to make it look a little bit more like a leaf, because that's what we're kind of going for, we're gonna let it dip in between those lines. So you just want it to lean in between those lines that you made. So you want it to dip in. And then once you have that all dipped in, then you can go ahead and kind of fill it in. And don't worry about it being streaky, because we're gonna come back and kind of highlight those veins again of our leaves. All right, so now we have the first little part of a leaf going on. So let's go ahead and wipe off our extra. So wipe off all your excess green and rinse that one out in the water. And let's dry it off. And now let's grab some really dark yellow. So a gold kind of color, golden yellow. So we're gonna grab some golden yellow, and we're gonna hop right up above our cabbage, and we're gonna do 3 little bumpy whoops that are right together. So 3 little circles. And then once you get those 3 circles, we're just gonna fill them in with a layer of paint, because we'll come back and make them look bumpier. All right, so we got our 3 little circles. So then we can just kind of wipe off our extra, and let's grab a little bit of orange. So I would use like kind of just some regular dark orange. And we're gonna throw a few persimmons on here. So we're gonna have some orange, and let's throw a few, like we're gonna throw a few in a couple places because then we're gonna add branches to kind of connect them. So let's throw this one over here, kind of overlapping our yellow one we just did. And I would make them about the same size as like persimmons in real life, so. And then right underneath that one, I would maybe add one up next to the cabbage. Maybe skip out a little bit and throw you a little one. And then maybe one above our cabbage over here. Then let's skip over here and throw this one kind of hanging out. I think that's what makes a floral like look good, is when it's not like too perfect and crammed all in your jar. You need a few sprigs going other places. And then maybe skip up a little bit from our leaf and throw us a couple more up here. So we have a good start to all of our little persimmons. So now let's just kind of wipe off our brush a little bit. You can still have a little orange on there. And we're gonna grab a little kind of like a salmon pink with the orange. So don't worry if you still have a little bit of orange. And right here where our leaf touches like this persimmon, we're gonna throw a little whoop, just like a little rainbow. And then we'll go ahead and fill that all in down below it, because we're going to turn that into a flower later. And then we'll do the same kind of thing with those same 2 colors underneath our leaf over here. You can make it as big as or small as you want, but we'll throw like another little part of one. I'm probably going to have mine overlap the top edge of the jar just a little bit. All right. So now we got us a good little start to that one. Then don't even wipe out your brush, and we're going to grab some of the darker pink with the orange. So a little bit darker pinks with some orange. And we're gonna skip up here to the top, and let's just throw like a bumpy little whoop right up here at the top so we can make that into another flower. And once again, if you want yours bigger, go bigger. You can make it bigger or smaller depending on how much room you have. But then once you have that little whoop, we'll just fill in all below it. So with the orange and the darker, kind of some darker pinks. So that gives us like kind of like a deep salmon color. All right, so now we have that color. And while we have that color on our brush, so once you have that big flower, let's go ahead and throw just a little whoop of that through each one of our persimmons. So it'll kind of give us a dark layer. So you don't want to fill it in solid, you just want to do like a little mark of this, just to kind of give us a little dab of dark through those. All right, so that's good. Got a good start to our persimmons. So now let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab a little bit smaller brush. It's like a number 4, and dry it off. And we're gonna grab some brown. So number 4, and dry it off and grab a little bit of brown. And now we're gonna throw a few stems that kind of connect our persimmons. So like I'm gonna have one, you definitely want one connecting this one up here at the top. I might have it lean in through our flower over here. It's still a little bit wet, so we'll just load our brush with a lot of paint and kind of hit it once, and once it dries we can come back and hit it again. And then I would even throw like a few little stems coming off of that one. Little twigs. And then let's connect these up here too. And when you're throwing these, don't worry if your paint gets thick anywhere. We can always let it dry and thin it down. And then I would maybe like throw you a few little twigs up here too. Our paint's still a little bit wet. And then we'll go over here on this side and let's throw a little twig, a few little twigs. That way our persimmon won't just be hanging out over there. All right, I think that's a good start to our stems. So now while we have that dark on our brush, let's just go ahead and grab a little bit of black. So like some black and some dark green right there where they touch on your plate. I would grab a little bit of black and a little bit of dark green. And let's go ahead and throw some dark shadows in to our cabbage. So you know how cabbage is known for its little spiral kind of shape. So you just want to make sure that you have some that curve. Or just kind of giving that impression. All right, so we have a little bit of dark going on in there. So now let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab a teeny tiny brush, the smallest one in your cup. So whatever you have, like a number 1, a teeny one, and dry it off. And let's use a few different greens. Let's start out with some lighter greens. And we're gonna skip over here and throw a few really light pieces of greenery. So you wanna load your brush with a lot of paint and then just be really light. So it's okay if they look a little piecey. You wanna be real light and loosey-goosey. So throw a little light line and then you can throw a few little light little bits off of it. So you just wanna be real light and piecey. All right, so we got a little bit of greenery going on over there. Now let's skip over here underneath our leaf and we're gonna throw like a few little parts of greenery because then we're gonna come back and throw some flowers. So kind of just some little dashes just to get us a little start. All right, and then underneath there, let's grab some more of the white with some slimy limey green. So you'll want some white and some light green just to make a really light color. And we'll throw some little greenery. And for this greenery over here, I'll kind of do like a long little piece. And then we're gonna throw like teeny little lines with like little dots kind of on the end. Just so we have a few different kinds of greenery so they don't all look the same. So we got a little bit of another color greenery in there. And then while you still have that white and light green, I would go ahead and hop back to your leaf and throw a little bit of those lines back there through the veins. And then we can come back and throw some dark on there later. All right, so we got a little bit of light. And let's also, while we have the light on there, throw a little bit like through the middle of these little leaves over here. All right. Now let's just wipe that one off and let's grab some darker greens with that same teeny tiny. So wipe it off and grab some darker greens. And now let's throw a little sprig of greenery right here on the left-hand side. So just load your brush with a lot of paint and then just be really light. And we're gonna throw some little green leaves. You can make them kind of all different sizes, like a little chili pepper size or like 1/2 of a mustache kind of looking leaf. But I would just have some that curve different directions. But we're just throwing those little leaves. A good little start to our dark leaves. We can come back and throw a little bit more lights and darks. But while you have the dark green on there, now up here through the top of our jar, we're gonna skip down to where the threads touch the jar, and we're gonna throw a droopy little line. So you just want it to droop a little bit and go from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And then right above that, we're just gonna do the same kind of thing. But these don't have to go all the way left to right. You're just kind of giving the impression of glares. Just so we have a little few darks in there. All right. Now let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab like a number 6 size brush again and dry it off. And let's grab some really dark green, so number 6 and some dark green. And we're gonna throw some of that kind of down here through the bottom of our jar. And now we get it even a little bit heavier through the corners. And up here, like at the top left and top right. So kind of through the top left, I would thicken it up. And over here through the top right, I would kind of thicken that up too. And I would even take a little bit of dark and maybe throw you like a little line back here, kind of so it'll look like the back of the jar. So you want that just to lean up just a tiny bit. All right, so we got us some dark in there. We can even throw a little dark between our cabbage and the lip of our jar if you still have a little space. But then once we got the dark, I would go ahead and grab some more of the light greens. And let's just throw another layer of light green all through the middle, just to get it a little bit thicker. And whenever you're thickening it up, don't worry that it's a little streaky. That'll just make it look better, more like glass. So just anywhere where it looked a little bit thin through the middle, just throw you a little bit more green. All right. Now while we have that brush in the greens, I'll kind of keep like a medium green on there. And let's just throw another layer of paint through your little sections of your cabbage. So you don't have to hit like every little bit, but we're just kind of thickening it up where we didn't put the black. And when you're working on your little cabbage, the more paint you put on the brush, the better it is and the easier it is to blend. So don't be afraid to grab a lot. But we're gonna kind of get this layer on there, and then we'll come back and add the little lines that make it look even more like one. All right. And then we can add a little bit of dark through a few of these pieces of greenery. Okie dokie. Now let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab like a number 4 size brush. So number 4, and dry it off. And we're gonna grab some white with some yellow to kind of make us like a real pale yellow. So some white and yellow on like a number 4. And then all of our yellow ones, we're just gonna add some little bumps. So you're just kind of bumping in with some yellow. And we'll come back and bump again with a different color. But we got a little start to our bumps. And then just, well actually while you have that white and yellow, you could even add a quick little glare just in a few places to your persimmons, like towards the top of a few of the persimmons, just to kind of give us that light glare. All right, so now we got that. Let's go ahead and wipe that one off and rinse that one out in the water. Now let's grab some light pink, so some like baby pink, with even a tiny bit of white. And let's skip through like our little flowers down here, and we're gonna throw a few broken little lines. So it's kind of like you're doing a cinnamon roll. You want it to be a little bit tighter towards the middle, kind of like a little broken cinnamon roll kind of. And then make your wiggles like a little bigger towards the outside. But you still want to have some of that salmon color peeking through. So just some broken little wiggles. And then we'll let that dry. And don't worry if it goes on kind of light, because it's going to dry a little bit darker than it goes on. And we're going to do the same thing up here through this one. You can just start out like a little bit tighter. And then we'll just let our wiggles get a little bit bigger towards the edge. All right, now let's go ahead and grab like more of that really light pink. And we'll just, at the very top, we'll kind of start at the top of this dark one, and we'll do a tight little broken spiral, and then we'll just let it keep getting bigger. But you can see how like my dark paint is still wet. That's fine, because that'll make it like look a little bit more loose and not quite as perfect. So don't worry if that yours is still wet. That makes it easier to get the good look. And we'll just do that all the way down to your other flowers. All right. so we have the start of that one. So now let's go ahead and wipe off our extra just a little bit and grab just some light pink with some salmon, just so you don't have the other colors. And we're gonna dab some of that salmon color over here where we had this greenery. We're just gonna do some little dabs. So think like the size of a Tic Tac or so. And we're just gonna skip around. And you can even have a few dabs that cover up your greenery anywhere where it got a little thick. But just a few, like right there where we had the greenery. And then I would skip over here to the right hand side and throw just a few over here that were coming out of that greenery. All right, so now we got some of that. Let's go ahead and wipe off our extra and chunk it in the water. And let's grab a teeny tiny brush and dry it off. And we're gonna grab some more of the darker greens. And now we're gonna do some tiny little leaves on just a few of our persimmons. So you don't wanna hit them all, because not all of them would be like facing this direction. But like right here where our stem goes into the persimmon, we're just gonna throw a few tiny little leaves. So like maybe 4 little leaves. And then over here, maybe like a little part of the leaves on the top. And then, let's see, let's skip up to the top where this one's kind of hitting in there and throw a few little leaves. And then maybe over here where that one hits. And throw a few. All right, now they're looking a little bit more like persimmons, less like little pumpkins on stems. Okay, now that we have a few leaves on there, let's just go ahead and grab, keep the teeny tiny brush and grab some white and some really light green. And now we're gonna add the little veins through our cabbage. So like over here where we have this one that leans down, kind of throw you a wiggly little line along the edge of it. And then you can just have a few light, kind of just giving the impression of, and we're gonna do the same thing through these little parts that come out. We're just gonna throw some light towards the edges that curve in. And the same thing in the middle, I'd throw you like a little line and then some little veins. Might need to try just a tad bit more, but we're starting to get it looking a little more like a cabbage. And then let's go ahead and while you have that tiny one, you can even have like kind of the lighter greens and even a little bit of darker. You can highlight just in a few places on our little leaf. I would kind of highlight like right near the veins, just to make those pop out just a tad more. And you could even highlight just a little bit with like some orange. Like it has a little bit of orange through the edges. Alright, so we got some orange on there. Let's go ahead and while our stem's drying, let's go ahead and write ball on our jar. So you can use that same teeny tiny and some dark green And you can look at like whatever jar you have handy, or you can write like your last name or something on there. People like to do all kinds of things. But I'm just gonna write ball, because I wish I had one of these old-timey green ones in real life. They're a lot harder to find than the blue. But a lot of the ball jars had different cursive, and some had lines underneath, some didn't, so. So we have a good little start to our ball. And while we have that dark green, let's just throw a few little bits of dark green through our leaves to add some dark. And if you needed to add any more dark up here to the top, just while you have it on your brush, just because that's what's gonna make it pop is the darks and lights. All right, let's let that dry for a sec. Let's wipe that one off and rinse it out. And now I would grab like a little bit lighter brown, or you could take some of your orange, some of that orange and yellow, and kind of mix it with your dark brown just to give you a little bit of lighter brown. And now let's add a few light brown highlights through all of our little twigs, just to kind of, so they won't be one color. And anywhere where it's kind of thin, this helps too. So any of your little thin spots through there. Up here through the top. We'll kind of let that dry and then thin it down. All right, let's go ahead now, while we're waiting for our ball to dry, let's go ahead and add us like a quick, another layer through our background. Grab like a pretty good size brush, so like a number 8, and dry it off. And we'll grab some more of that light gray. And now just anywhere where it looks a little thin, just kind of thicken it up without chopping off your flowers. So I would mainly get like all the big areas. It's like the bottom left-hand corner, the bottom right-hand corner, that top right, like everywhere where it looks a little bit thin. You can just kind of thicken it up. And when you're thickening it up, don't worry about going like a certain direction. Just kind of grab a bunch and go for it. But you can kind of see anywhere where yours looks thin and just throw you another layer. Probably gonna thin down my little twigs up here at the top with some background. And then once you have that, go ahead and wipe it off and chunk it in the water. And let's use like a teeny tiny brush again. And now some really light green, even with a little white if you want. And we're gonna add some highlights to our letters. And you could even add a few little highlights through the top of your jar, and then a few more through the edges of your cabbage. And then the only other thing is let's throw some more bumps through our little yellow thing, little yellow flowers. So grab like a number 4 or something. And let's grab this time a little bit of light green with the yellow. And we'll just do a few bumps of that kind of towards the bottom. Of all of our yellow ones. That's going to kind of make the pops of them pop a little bit more. So to have a few little darker bumps towards the bottom. Maybe even add a teeny tiny bit of orange, just barely, just to kind of get it darker on the bottom. Then you can always brighten up the top ones again if you need to. All right, let's check this out and see what it looks like. Let's go ahead and sign our name real quick. But let's use a teeny tiny brush and whatever color you want to use. And let's go ahead and sign like our name or initials. Now we have the fall floral. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.